call this evening's meeting to order, Blackwell City Council, our February 20th meeting, 2020. And if you guys would stand with us, John lead us in prayer, and Richard in flag salute.
Father, we call upon you for guidance and direction again to, as we discuss the needs and all of our community, Father. Pray for wisdom. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Item number 3 is special presentations, and it shows on the agenda there are none, so we'll move on to the consent agenda, number 4. Any questions on any of the consent agenda items?
Okay. I see, what, about $3,500 on the utility office, remodeling?
It hasn't been paid yet. It's been allocated for an area downstairs that is much needed for our utility office personnel, for sink area, that kind of thing. So, and we are paying it on our BMA side.
All right,
Cups
thank
is
you.
paying for them?
I don't know if
Okay.
we're going to use cups, but it's an option.
Okay. Any other questions on the consent agenda this evening? I know that a lot of financial stuff come later this afternoon or midday. Have they had time to look that over?
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Tracy?
Greenfield.
Aye.
Markwart.
Aye.
Braden.
Aye.
Balil.
Aye.
Webb.
Aye.
Moving on to item 5, reports, be the authority board reports. Having one here for the authority board? Melissa? Or Jerry?
It's pretty special, we get to go first. It's been a couple of weeks since I've seen y'all. We've been meeting about every other month with Golf Authority, mainly because of one thing or another. Most of the time, it's just we don't have a quorum available for meetings, so we just cancel it. But here's what I can give you since last time I was here. We've received a revised version of the trust indenture for the Golf Authority. We asked for, last time I was here, we asked for an amendment. They basically set it aside since it wasn't ever recorded, to my knowledge. And so they basically reworked it. We've got a new one to look at. I've distributed to the group, but here again, it's the type of thing we need everybody present to talk about before we give you the go-ahead on that thing. Hopefully, we'll be doing something before too long. The course is in pretty good shape, all things considered. Again, we've had a lot of rain. The course is very soft. The ground's, in 6 holes especially, man, it's bad when the guy drives across with a golf cart, because before long we're going to have a lot of lollies out there. But they've done pretty good at staying on the cart paths. But when we have a nice day, we've got a lot of players. They show up. They come out of the woodwork. And that's great. We love that. We met on November 18th with city manager here, Janet. Had several department heads present, and we talked about our laundry list of things we'd like to do. We had a prioritized list there, and the number 1 item on the list was a new roof on the golf shop. They're going to have a contractor to do the tree removal around Blackwell here, and Greg brought him out to the golf course and we marked some trees to be removed. But we haven't seen him in a couple months, so we don't know if he's went south for the winter or whether he's just tied up or what's going on.
We're going to get that on the schedule. We've just had some things to wait on.
I understand.
It's
Things happen.
it's going to happen.
We're going to start burning the creek banks when the weather permits, and we're gonna do it in small sections. Last time we did it, we got started, we just went from one into the other. And we had a little smoke down there, but we had it all under control. But we'll be talking to the fire chief about that when we do it. And if he's got people free, we'd love to have them. Overall, the greens are very healthy. Considering the winter months, we've had some strange weather. You know, it'll freeze and it'll warm up 60 degrees and it'll freeze again. It's not too good a situation for greens, but the greenskeeper has done a good job. He plans on adding, give it a shot of fertilizer when it looks like we maybe turned a corner. Just gotta give him a little boost. He's already started spraying pre-emergence on the fairways to get rid of the weeds. And the one other thing we usually do about this time of year, maybe a little later, we airfry the greens. You got a little thing that punches holes in the greens, about 3/8, ½ inch diameter, about that deep. Pull plugs out of it, and it's very helpful for getting, and spread sand over it to fill the holes up. Facilitates the water getting into it. So we're not gonna do that as early as we did last year, but we're gonna do it. Now the future projects, I've been looking at our low water bridge again. I got off my high horse about putting a railroad bridge in there to cover, to do it. It's just too expensive. So I've been doing some engineering on the thing, and I'll have a proposal for you. Greg, you had asked how big our conduit was. We've got 130 inch. I'd like to go back to 2, give it more flow. We've got one bad section right in the middle. It's terrible. I mean, it's broken down from all 4 corners, probably 4 inches low in the middle, and that's what gives everybody a problem driving across it. So I've got a little plan I'm working on. When I get it done, I'll bring it, first of all, bring it to the West Gulf Authority, and then we'll bring it to you. And it'll be like excavating out that one bad section, taking the conduit out, putting 2 new ones in, backfilling it, and redoing the concrete. Only this time I'm gonna put rebar. I want to put rebar in it. You can't put a concrete slab down without rebar and expect it to stay. We've mentioned the clubhouse roof we'd like to get replaced. I also volunteered to do the main water pump piping revision down there in the pump house. I've been down to look at it, and I need to get under the scoop shovel and clean it out before I can work on it, or even take any dimensions. But that's still on the agenda to work out. Now, we talked also when we had that meeting in November about the round top building, removing it. It is 30 foot 3 inches wide and 32 foot 4 inches long. So I'm guessing that since it's hemispherical or half circle, probably about 16 foot at the ridge height. So to give you an idea, it does sit on a concrete slab. We've got some other things going. We plan on raising the rates we pay our part-time help from $8 to $9 an hour, because, you know, just to attract decent help and being able to hold them, even though at best we're paying 30 hours a week, but the rest of the time, you know, they're just casual help. We're also kicking around changing the rate structure for the golf course for like golf tournaments and stuff. And the same for, we have corporate memberships. We usually just one chunk, and they get so many people and all that. Well, there's a lot of 1- and 2-man operations in Blackwell that would be glad to have a membership to play, except that one big chunk of dough. So we're trying to figure out a way to attract more people to provide corporate memberships. Last thing, we're still working on the lease with Toro. I'm kind of tickled that our superintendent, he's been working with this one guy who's been around a long time. Well, they had personnel change at Toro to working with us. We got this 90-day wonder in there, and he's a lot harder to work with. So we're still working on it, trying to get something worked out, get the 2 CTRs and get the lease rate down where we can live with it. So that's about what I had on the list to talk about. Got any questions? We're open for business the second Tuesday every month. You're welcome to come down and join us. We welcome you with open arms.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jerry.
Thanks, Jerry.
trees at the golf course, just to kind of give you an update, I contacted one contractor, they've gone out, I think probably 2 weeks ago or less. He's still not submitted. I called a price yet. I called him, I believe earlier in the week, and he's still working on the price. Also, I did contact 2 other contractors in Ponca City, so we would have three bids. We're kind of having a hard time meeting where I can meet them out there and run them through the golf course. And usually it's a day that I can't be there, and a day that I can, they can't, so I'm still working on the other 2. So just to give you an update on the trees, that's kind of where we're at on those.
Thank you, Greg. Melissa?
Good evening. How's everyone tonight?
Good.
I'm on my tiptoes. Okay. First of all, I would like to thank you all for the article in the municipal newsletter. That was very nice for the museum. Lots of advertisement out there. And thank Charles and Destiny for all their hard work promoting the museum as they always do. Our wine and cheese the other night at the museum was fabulous. We had a great turnout, lots of music, lots of fun dancing, tons of food. Louise Rigdon made enough we could have 4 or 5 events. Anyway, and those of you that were there know what I'm talking about. So it was a really great event. It put us in the newspaper, it put us on Facebook. It brought people in that we haven't seen for a while. They had a great time. Raised lots of money. Hopefully we can redo some in the club room and get things back on there. Right now I gave you guys this 2 little pieces of paper about our tornado room. Thanks for all the support on that. We've cleaned the room out. We've painted. It looks like clouds in there, so if you haven't seen it, you'll have to come by. We've made a list of what we've assigned is going to go where. On the exhibit, we're going to have a debris wall that shows some destruction from the tornado. We're going to have pictures. We've talked to weather people. They're going to come and speak. We've got 4 guest speakers coming in the future. First responders, historians that know about the tornado. We visited the Udall Museum a couple of times and kind of brought them in. We're going to have a simulator, a calendar of events, pictures. Sorry, don't mean to bore you. Anyway, but we're working on all these different things, getting the new carpet. So it's going to be a really great thing. We're planning to meet with Udall so they can come down and view, because we went and added some of their things. And so we're also planning to do the exhibit May 16th, cross your fingers. I did get funding for the monument. KUP paid for the 23 names, and we did get funding for the large monument. So we are so excited about that. I went around and scooped around town and begged, borrowed and pleaded for some money, and I ended up raising about $3,000 for the monument, and it'll be out front. So that's mainly it. Any questions? Anybody have anything? Comments? No? All right, thanks. Good to see you guys.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
Any other authority board reports this evening? If there being none, we'll move on to the treasurer's report. Frank?
Evening, everyone. Same routine. We'll kind of go through the January financials. We'll see if we've got questions and kind of walk through what's happening. But there's also going to be a little bit of discussion on some information that I had stumbled across in the last week that I think is going to be of very much interest to everybody on the council related to the BPT. There was something said at the Tuesday meeting when the BPT trustees, between the trustees questioning and the trustee banks presentations, that didn't sound quite right to me. And so for about the past week, I've been digging around a little bit. I've been on the phone with CIBC and Bank First at least once or twice the last 3 or 4 days, and they were finally able to explain to me what my issue was, or my discrepancy, which I think everybody will be pleased when we get to that part of the report. So I'll say that for a little bit later. let's talk about monthly financials. And remember, we talk about the 35 different funds that the city has kind of sewed up in one pair of pants with 35 pockets. And we pay most attention to the two big pockets, the general fund, which is the city side of everything, and the BMA, which is the utility side of everything. So the first page is going to kind of walk you through what's going on, both what we had expected to occur in the budget column and what is actually occurring. And I know that Councilman Webb has often wanted to equate this to like a checking account. Tell me how we're doing with knowing if I deposit more money or I withdraw more money, what's that doing to the balance? So we're going to kind of walk through this, both how you plan for it to occur via as if this were its own checking account, and then what's actually occurring. And so in that first column, notice that that very first number under the budget column says $99,043, the beginning unencumbered cash. If that were my checking account, which it's not because it doesn't have near that many digits in it, I can assure you. If that was my opening number on the beginning of the year, then I'm starting my year with $99,000. Now, as I deposit money throughout the year and I write checks throughout the year, what's going to happen to that number? It's either going to go up if I deposit more money, or it's going to go down if I write more checks than I deposit. What you had planned in the budget and the amendments so far is that that $99,000 at the end of the year would end up being $927,000, meaning that it would be increasing by $828,000. That was the plan. That's the budget as it has been adopted and amended for the general fund. So there's our benchmark. That's what we're measuring against, is that we're going to take opening cash from $99,000 to $828,000. And the only way, or I'm sorry, $927,000. And the only way you can do that is to deposit $828,000 more dollars than we bring in. And then at the bottom, you kind of see calculations of how much of that is a percent of our annual revenue, or another way to look at it would be, is that 1 month, 2 months worth of operations, how long would that last us? Knowing that a month is about 8%, a little over 8% a year, or 8% a month, so we're looking at 16 or 17% to try to get to 2 months. And so the budget was planned to leave about 14%, so a little less than a couple of months. But now look to the second column. Here's what's actually happening through January. And so we're 7 months through the year, at the end of January. The first thing that changed is the checking account balance was wrong. There wasn't $99,000 to begin the year with in this general fund checking account. There was $564,000. So we're automatically ahead right away. Now, how are our deposits going? How are our withdrawals going? Well, if we started with $584, and at the end of January we have $1,786,000, then that means we must have deposited a lot more money than we written checks for. And we have. We've actually increased the cash balance by $1,222,000 through the first 7 months of the year. So now that ending fund balance of $1,786,000, or the ending cash, if you will, is about 27% of our annual revenue stream, which now gives us roughly, 4.5, 5 months, almost 5 months of reserves sitting as it is right now. Now, again, 7 months does not make a year, still have 5 months to go, but so far, so good in the general fund. As long as everybody controls the expenses based on what they were allocated in the budget, and as far as revenues continue to come in at or above the estimates, then that number's not going to materially change. The only thing that would change that would be one-time expense, one-time emergencies, or other things that come along that we had not anticipated. And so if you want more detail about how that has occurred, that's the second page, where it's a print off of the city's computer system of the general fund that kind of gives you more detail about the individual categories of revenue and the individual departments of expense. But as you can see from the summary page, everything looks positive because everything is positive in the general fund. Now, let's move on to the municipal authority, where we might have a little bit of a different story, but let's see. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to read this like we would our checking account. In the first column, the checking account opening balance was estimated to be at July 1, $1,254,000. So that's what we were gonna start with. And then all the revenues were gonna come in, all the expenses were gonna go out, and we were going to decrease that balance by 596,000, which would basically then leave us with ending cash of 658,000. In other words, we started with $1.2 million, we ended with 658. That means we're gonna spend about 600,000 more than what we thought, or what we had collected. We were gonna decrease, a planned decrease of cash. In fact, if you can remember back to the budget, the original budget that was adopted in June of last year, I think if you went over to the column on the far right that said, how much are we gonna spend more than we're gonna collect? And it was like $1.5 million. In other words, we were gonna deplete $1.5 million. Well, this was 600,000 of that $1.5 million. So now we can kind of say, well, that's like 1/3 almost of that number. Let's see how that's holding up. And so we walk to the second column. First thing, bad news. We didn't start with a checking account balance in the BMA of $1,254,000. We started with only 749,000. So that kind of puts us in a hole a little bit. However, revenues are coming in and we're depositing those revenues ahead of projections. Expenses are holding under our projections. The transfers from the BPT are coming in, the transfers out are going to the general fund for support. And so far, what we've done with that initial 749,000 is we've actually increased it to 927,000. Well, how do you do that? Well, basically because you deposit more money than you write checks for. And so far, through 7 months of the year, the BMA hasn't lost money like you had projected that it would, but it has instead made money. So therefore, that whole $1.5 million that we had originally thought in the budget that we were going to spend among all funds, here's 1/3 of it that's going away if this holds true. Now again, there's a big if there. This is 7 months of the year. We know the summer months are already past us. We're not going to get a lot of increased revenue streams. We've got to hold the line on the expenditures. We've got to make sure all the transfers occur. But so far, through 7 months, we're nowhere near where we thought we'd be, and you can kind of see why in the variance column. So where does that leave us percentage-wise? Well, not near as wonderful as the general fund, obviously. We're at about 7% in the BMA, but again, we're wearing one pair of pants, so it's tough to kind of look at each pocket individually without realizing that I can transfer money from one pocket to the other at any point that I want, and make the general fund reserve look less and make the BMAs look more if that's what I wanted to do. So again, nothing bad on our two big activities, our two big operational activities. The fourth page, or the next page, is just the same thing off the computer system. A little bit more summary of all the utility revenues by type and the utility expenditures by type also. Now, let's talk about sales tax on page, oh, sorry, please, go ahead. If you got questions so far, let's entertain them.
I'm looking at the total revenue versus total expenditures, am I correct? Our revenues not equaling our expenditures?
In which, are you looking in the actual?
Looking at total, on the right.
Yeah, in the far right, are you looking at BMA or general fund?
Yeah, BMA.
Yeah, in the BMA, we have basically collected more revenue by 178,000 than what we have spent in expense. So we're in the black, if you would, in the BMA, instead of the red, which is what you had planned to be after 7 months. So.
Okay, maybe
All right.
I'm looking at actually page 4, Utility Authority Fund.
Is it the computer page that you're looking at?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Which column are you looking at?
Last column.
The budget balance?
Total revenues, total expenditures.
Okay, you're looking at the rows. So you're looking at the rows of revenue and the row of expense. Now there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns. Which column are you talking about?
Very last column, very last, when it says total revenues, go all the way to the right, you got 3,971,000. And then down under total expenditures, you've got 5,598,000. Is that, am
The far right column isn't a total year-to-date, that's a budget balance. That doesn't have anything to do with what's actually occurring. That's just a mathematical calculation of the difference of what's actually happened. The column you want to look for is the middle column that says YTD actual.
Okay,
So if you look at the YTD actual column, you'll see revenues of, gosh, I'm sorry, this is so small,
58,
5.8 million roughly, and then expense of 5.5.
5.5.
So remember, there's 300,000 that's running through, and remember, this has accounts payable and accounts receivable running through it, which haven't hit cash yet, where my schedule is basically affecting cash. So that's the difference between these two numbers, is that we know that that number is going to change in cash once those receivables get collected and the payables get paid. But as you can kind of see from the computer report, that supports the same thing, that we're bringing in more money than we're spending in that fund.
Okay, so that's a little important then.
Yes, that's actually very good. And that's the column that you want to pay attention to in the computer reports, is that year to date. Some people like to see the current month column also, because it kind of tells you what happened in the current month, but that's the way to read those, is look at those column totals.
Thank you.
Now let's talk about sales tax. The spreadsheet, we've been watching sales tax for the full year and kind of comparing it to what happened in the last 3 years, so that we can get an idea of whether sales tax is going up, going down, remaining relatively steady. So if you look at the 2020 budget column, right in the middle there, you see the total line that says we've estimated an entire total sales tax collection of $2,560,000. So far through fiscal year 20, which is the column right before it, we've already collected $1,918,000. So immediately, the first variance column says, okay, what did we think we were going to collect through the first 7 months or 8 months? And again, this is through February. And how different is that from what we've actually collected? And so as the running total will show you in that variance column, we're about $181,000 ahead of projections, which again, that's just through 7 months. This usually includes the Christmas month. In February is when most of the Christmas sales pretty much show up. And so we've got about $181,000 projection that we're ahead as far as where the projected balance was. Now, compare that immediately to last year. Where were we at this time last year? And notice that's the last variance column, which says that we're within $5,800 of last year's sales tax number. So not only are we ahead budget-wise, we're nearly equal to where we were after 7 months in the prior year. The reason the budget number looks so much greater than what was actually collected last year is the budget was adopted with a very conservative sales tax number. In other words, we may not collect what we earned last year, so let's only budget, let's say 90% of it or 95% of it. And so that was a good move. That means that we're ahead, which is one of the reasons why the general fund is so ahead, is that revenues, which is the sales tax is the primary revenue, is the one that's coming in quite a bit ahead. All right, now for the fund news. At Tuesday's BPT meeting, maybe a little background first. Every month, the trustee banks send the city a spreadsheet that they create on Excel, where they literally show all of their the allocated segregations that they are keeping on hold for us to draw down. In other words, money that's been earned by the trust, but yet on paper has been segregated into 7 little allocations: water, sewer, general fund, capital improvements, private projects, community enhancement, and then a medical allocation. And so for the entire time I've been here, these spreadsheets come to us, and then we add the 2 spreadsheets together from the 2 banks to get an idea of how much money that we've got available that we can draw down. And if you recall, we've been kind of talking about it's usually around 2 to 3 million. A couple million at one bank and $1 million at another. Well, when I listened to the CIBC presentation the other day, I think it was maybe even the mayor or Mr. Savage asked a question about why there's a difference between the number that shows as 2 million on the spreadsheet, which was like on page 5, and then the market value and cost basis of the sub-account, which was $3,072,000. And I just thought, oh, they're making an error, or they're making a mistake. And because if they've got $3 million and Bank First has another $1 million, then we're talking about $4 million, not $3 million. So I called CIBC. They didn't know what I was talking about. They also had a math error in their schedule, so they had to go redo it. They sent it back. Then it matched what I thought it would, but they couldn't answer my question. So they researched it for a day, and then this morning called me back and said, okay, here's what happened. In September of last year, and again, I don't know who told them to do this, or whether they decided to do it on their own, or somebody had directed them to do it. They physically stopped doing a paper allocation of the investments and literally went and cashed in a bunch of investments and put it in a money market fund. Well, when they cashed in the allocation investments, there was $1 million of gains that had not been realized, that once they cashed them in, were realized. But they did not reflect them on their spreadsheets they send the city. So when I looked at the presentation that they were presenting, which was $3 million, and I looked at their spreadsheet, which said $2 million, I said, one of these numbers has got to be wrong. It can't be right. I was kind of hoping it was the $3 million that was right. Well, come to find out, it is right, and they just didn't put it in the spreadsheet. So what I'm telling you is there's another $1 million that nobody knew about that's in the BPT trust that's already been allocated to the city, waiting for the city to just ask for it. So if you were to call both banks tomorrow and say, you don't have to do the allocations anymore, you're going to send everything you got to us from now on, they're going to cut us checks that total $4 million, not $3 million, which is great. You could never see it before because it was buried in the lump sum of the gains of their investments and never segregated out. So now they want to know, well, do you want us to segregate it out from now on? And I said, well, I think we're going to empty those out into the city's funds here too long, so you won't have to worry about the allocation. So basically good news, there's about $1.1 million of unrecognized, unrealized gains that existed that until last Tuesday I didn't even know existed, nor do I'm not sure anybody else knew because it wasn't in any of the documentation that they were giving us. And it only happened because they physically created the allocations in a separate money market account, where before it was just all part of one big investment pool and you wouldn't have been able to notice a gain or a loss. So it's a great thing that they did it at that time, because what could have happened is if a market turned around and lost half, they would be reporting that you had $2 million, but then they'd have to come and warn you, now, don't get all carried away. Even though your spreadsheet says $2 million, it's only worth $1 million. But luckily, they didn't do that. So I don't know, whoever pulled that trigger pulled it at the right time, because that locked in all that gain, and that's 10 years of gains that had never been reported. So that's $1 million that you now have the ability to plan for and use. And I think, based on the meeting, we're going to go ahead and take control of those funds in the next month or so that we can have that at our disposal without having to go to the BPT and request it every month. So basically $1 million more. And so I've tried to reflect it in this schedule that you're looking here. Now, the reason you don't see $4 million and you only see $3.5 million is because in January, we physically drew about $750,000 of BPT money a little bit out of each bucket for various projects. So we already took $750,000 out. Even after that, we still have 3.5, almost 3.6 million now still left in those buckets. And that's about $1.1 million more than any of us thought available. So I guess that's good news. I'm just kind of shocked at it, because.
So you're saying the additional money that was found is reflected here now?
Yes.
3.5?
That is correct. It's now, that number would have been about 2.4 million had nothing changed from last month, and I hadn't heard that presentation. So maybe some of you all understood that, but when they said it at the meeting, I for the life of me, I couldn't figure it out. And then I assumed that we had this money market account already there, that it's been there since existence, and that money was already there, and the gains would have already been there. But I found out by asking CIBC that they just did that in September. It was just on paper up until then, and that was really surprising. So anyway, so
when we do pull those funds into the city where you can track those, in-house, are we gonna keep that in a money market account so it can continue to gain a little bit of interest, or?
yeah, I think because we don't use it so frequently that we'll probably try to end up in a higher basis, because we're not gonna really write checks like every day out of it. So, but what my plan is to create a fund in the city with multiple departments, water, sewer, streets, so you can keep track of the allocations. So we'll have one, I don't know if I call it a super fund, we'll just have one fund to account for all those allocations. And then within the equity section, we'll separate, here's how much is streets, here's how much, but basically the same thing they're doing on the spreadsheet. We're just gonna do it in the computer system.
But we should be able to, put it where it's drawn 1.6.
Absolutely.
Right now, so.
We can put it in the 1.6, 1.7 where it's earning now, and remember, up until September, it was in the investment group that was earning 8%. And so, since September, it's only been earning 1.7, which is nothing to sneeze at, but it's not 8%. But the market could have tanked in those 6 months too, and we would have been earning 4% or something less. So basically, it was just a good move by whoever did it to lock in those gains. We might have gave up a little bit of money over the last 6 months, but not for the security that we got out of it. So I think that was a pretty smart move. So that's good news. And then on the bucket allocations that we've seen, we haven't done any amendments lately to the PPT buckets, so nothing really has changed on this spreadsheet. I've just highlighted a few things, including the line where I've actually added into revenue on the third page, that $1,066,000, where it's basically, I didn't really have anywhere to put it. It's in the amendment column in the total box on the far end. And I'm treating it like it was new revenue to us because we didn't realize it until September when they actually cashed those investments in. All right, now for the bad news. Budget amendments. I think I have 5 amendments here, and I'll just walk you through them and explain what I know is going on. The first one is in the general fund, where we're raising the appropriations of the city council department by a combined $90,000, because the two groups that seem to get paid out of that are running far ahead of what they had thought it was going to cost to provide those services. That's us, basically, being one of them, and Bryce being the other. Basically, legal and accounting are running way ahead of what we thought, and I could go through numerous issues about why the accounting's running ahead, but I mean, you can kind of see this first year has just been chaotic in trying to get everything together, and every week it seems like we find something new. We end up doing more and more work on different things. The audit that we're trying to put together that's trying to be audited right now, we've recently realized that we're actually responsible for all the component unit financials. In other words, the BIA, the BEDA, the ones that were already there are fine in the city system, but all the ones that are outside, they're relying on us to do the accruals and do the adjustments to give them to their auditor so that they can then put them into the financials. So that's kind of taken us a little bit of extra time than what we thought. And budget workshop, every time I come up here, every time we talk about different stuff, every meeting I come to, that ends up kind of just adding to the cost. So I kind of estimated where I think we'll be at the end, and I just took a guess at legal fees, and I don't know if that's going to happen or not. But I've raised the budget because you're about to reach your limit at that point. You don't want to go beyond that. And then again, depending on what happens between now and the end of June, there may be the need for another amendment. But the way I pay for it, usually every time there's an amendment, there's a source for it. Notice there's nothing in the revenue. In other words, I could have offset this against the extra sales tax revenue that we're collecting, but I decided to leave all that alone and basically said, look, we've already got plenty of fund balance that we're projected to have, well over 25, 26%. So we'll just use it out of fund balance. And so that's the amendment in the general fund. Again, there'll be more amendments as the years go by. or as the months go by, but hopefully there won't be near as significant as this one that you see. So that's the general fund. The next one's the Community Enhancement Fund, which is probably one of the really small funds that will probably end up closing unless we decide to retitle it. But I think we're gonna just close this one. It doesn't have very much money in it. And if things go the way we think, it won't have any money left in it at the end of this amendment, because whatever money it has, we're going to combine it with new revenue and basically spend it. So that is for the grant that's coming in, the Keep Oklahoma Beautiful grant. And then it's going to combine with the original estimated revenue of $4,000 to give us a total of $7,000 to spend, which will basically then kind of close that fund, since it'll have nothing left. The FEMA fund has a very small adjustment simply because the generator replacement cost was a little bit over what we had budgeted, so we needed to raise that by $500. But it had the fund balance again, it's still there, and even after this, it'll still end up with $7,500 that can still be used for something else at that point too. Probably another one that we'll target for closing when we're done. Auto Equipment Repair Fund, Fund 139. We've got some unbudgeted patrol, transmission, and street equipment expenses that we're incurring. So the original budget was $36,000 for this fund. This one amends it to by $15,000 to get us to $51,000. But this fund carried over $56,000 from the previous year. So again, it's there to be spent. It looks like it'll end with about $17,000, but I really don't see a need to have a separate auto repair fund. We can track that money by putting it in another fund and keep track of it. So that's probably another one that we're going to target for closing in the budget process for next year. Last one, rec sales tax. Again, this one is for, help me out, Tracy, what was this? 60,000. The concrete slab, okay. 60,000 for the concrete slab. So looking at what happens to the rec sales tax fund, remember this is the one that we thought was going to start with $1.2 million or $1.3 million, roughly $1,277,000. It actually had $1.5 million or almost $1.6 million to begin. So its actual beginning fund balance was $1.6 million. We had revenues estimated of $266,000. Now the amended appropriations are $1.081 million, meaning that we'll still end this fund with $783,000. I don't really consider this one in a structural deficit, like even though we spend more money than we bring in, because like trust funds, these are restricted monies that are there to be spent just on that thing. It's not as if when we run out of money in the general fund, we just get to go rob the rec sales tax fund to help pay salaries of librarians and police and street and fire. It's not there to do that. So even though we're going to spend more money, that's what that money's there to spend. The rest of your $1.5 million in the budget that you originally thought you were going to spend was $750,000 of construction bond proceeds that we were going to use for a CDBG project, but now we're going to use for something else. We're starting to use that money, but again, I don't really think that's part of a structural deficit because that money's in the construction account. It has to be spent, and it can't be spent on anything other than that. So literally, the only part that was perceived to be a structural deficit was the BMA, where we had thought we were going to drain the BMA's operating cash by about $600,000, but so far we've only added about $178,000 to it. So really just kind of good news all around, and I don't know what else to.
Frank, are we still looking on this recreational sales tax fund, renaming that since it is actual a tax that can be used for infrastructure?
I probably should let Bryce make a ruling on that. Accounting wise, it would make perfect sense for me to change the name of that fund in the system to broaden its description, but I don't want to do anything that's not allowed within the legal confines. So I mean, I'm not sure how the ordinance is written and whether it was balloted, the rec sales tax fund, because typically whenever you see what the wording on the ballot is, that typically rules regardless if the purpose changed. So I would just have to go back and look and see what the ballot said, but
yeah,
I think we just need to make everybody aware as we go through this that although that's called the rec sales tax fund, it can be spent on other capital besides just rec. So, But as long as we know it and we go through the budget process and we think that through, I think we can explain it pretty well.
How soon do you think we'd have an opinion on that?
I don't know.
I'll have an opinion by your next meeting.
So my
I know
legal
budget's
advice,
coming up and we've talked about budget, so
Sure.
that's why I asked.
yeah, my legal advice is not worth very much, so I would defer to Bryce, so. But yeah, I think that's a valid argument, and then again, I think when it comes time to sit down and budget, that we all remember rec sales tax is there for other things if we need it to be, so it just becomes a priority of where you want to pay for something first. So, that's, sorry, I took a lot longer than I wanted to, but I just wanted to cover all
All
the
the important
bases.
information.
Well, it was, and it was a shocking one
Yeah.
this morning. I was convinced this morning that I was wrong and that there was something I'm missing, and I couldn't understand. And when they called and confirmed it this morning, I was like, wow, that's really something.
That's good.
Yeah, it's great news.
Great news.
You make all those kind of mistakes you want.
That's for the million, Frank.
Hmm?
I said, that's for the million.
Oh, good.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. Crawford can't be here at the next meeting. We don't have these amendments on the agenda.
I saw that.
We'll place them on the next agenda.
Okay, I was gonna ask.
Oh, okay,
We're gonna have
sorry.
action on those.
I didn't even know it was on or not, so my bad.
All right.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Frank.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes the treasurer's report. We'll move on to business, and under item A is the council will receive public comments, but discussion by and between the members of the governing body and the public is discouraged in order to adhere to the agenda item and ensure compliance with Oklahoma Meetings Act. I do have two individuals I'd like to speak this evening. It'd be Karen Baker first and Becky Adams be second.
Do I get to sit up there?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
I'm sorry I'm not great at public speaking, I'm better at editorials. I just want to say to you all, when you all hired Janet Smith as your city manager back in January, you asked her for transparency and accountability to all of us. Integrity is another word that I can use in a sentence with Janet. It does matter to her. I've seen a huge improvement with the attitude of the city employees. I not only can say that for myself because of some interaction with some departments, but I hear it from friends and neighbors that do not use social media. They don't even have an internet in their home. I feel like that Janet has surpassed and she's done her job. I believe the department heads, her city employees have faith in her. I've lived here since 2018 when Mike and I bought a home, and I think customer service is at an all-time high. I don't think it can get any better. And I hope that have her around for many years. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Becky?
I'm gonna, I'll say point of order because I don't know. I wanted to speak specifically, just ask a quick question about item GB, and that hasn't been discussed yet. So how's this supposed to work?
You need to come to the microphone.
Okay, I didn't know if I needed to wait until after it had already been brought up.
Item A is where the public comments are, so it would have to be asked now, and then it would be addressed at that time.
I just had a quick question. I'm wondering, I know that belongs to the chamber. At one time, it was recommended we buy it. And I wondered why we are gonna pay for the demolition of that rather than the chamber, since it belongs to them. I just thought that was a little curious. If it's not, are we deeming it, like we are the other properties that we're paying to tear down and haul off, deeming it unsafe? Are we deeming it an eyesore, or are we just being nice and spending that money so the chamber doesn't have to?
Sorry, I didn't hear.
To refer to item G, so item B.
G, is it?
G, sub-item B.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Those are the only two individuals that have signed. Does anybody want to sign up and make any other further comments for the agenda items this evening? If not, then we'll move on to item B, is discussion and consideration to take action with respect to resolution number 02112020, approving the third amendment to the trust indenture of the Blackwell Public Trust, accepting beneficial interest in said third amendment to the trust indenture and containing other provisions related thereto. That's kind of a mouthful. Bryce?
Yes, thank you. For those of you that are on the trust, we went through this at the BPT meeting. For those that weren't here or didn't go through it, let me go through it briefly. If you turn to tab 6B, or if you don't have a book in your document, we amended the definition of community enhancement project and the definition of capital improvement project to include as a purpose the ability to use those funds on principal and interest on bonds, notes, or other evidences of indebtedness if we did a financing. We also added a few words on community enhancement. We added electric projects along with sewer, water, and street. And we also gave some examples such as that community enhancement could be used for beautification projects, property acquisition, remodeling and renovation projects, public signage, Main Street projects, and other projects which enhance the aesthetics of the community. So we kind of broadened the definition of community enhancement project. We did the same thing on capital improvement project. We added electric project, and we also added that the money could be used to pay principal and interest on notes. Under section 2.3 of the trust indenture, there was a provision that required these investment houses to create these funds, these individual funds in their investment account. They had to create funds there, and every time there was an allocation, they had to put it into their proper fund on their side. There's really no reason to do that. Once the money is allocated or appropriately paid to the city, the thought was that either should be paid or made available for the city manager, but there's no reason to put those monies into those funds on the investment side. And so I just eliminated it. We increased private projects. We eliminated private projects, and we stuck that into the community enhancement funds. So there was a private project account where you put 1% in, and community enhancement, which was 5, went to 6. We discussed a additional allocation over a 3-year period that would have raised an additional $1 million. That was struck down by it wasn't followed by the BPT, but from what we heard today, it sounds like we found that money, that $1 million that we talked to them about. We ended up getting that money anyways. I just point that out as kind of funny. Under 2.5, we provided that all of that money, which should have been paid either to the medical fund or to each one of these separate accounts, and there's balances in those funds that they have. Remember those individual funds? Well, they have balances in them. And this amendment provides that immediately upon the enactment of this third amendment and filing it appropriately, that those balances would come immediately over to the city. And in the city are created restricted accounts. Now, you don't want funds because funds have to be separately accounted and it costs more, and so we're setting up accounts. But they act just like a fund It's restricted, it can only be used for the purpose as defined under this, and so there'll be a number of accounts on our side in the general fund. And those balances, which are over in the investment houses, will come over and be placed in those restricted accounts. And then each month, as the money is made, that money will come over and be placed in the restricted accounts in the general fund of the city. Currently, the way it is that the manager has to request those, and we have requested it in the past, and quite frankly, there have been issues. The thought was, when that's our money, we should get it and we should put it to use for the use for which it's set up for, and that's, as the amendment is, streets, sewer, water, capital improvements, community enhancement. Let's take that money, let's put it in our funds, and let's spend it, not frivolously, but plan it and spend it, which I think that the public certainly approves. They want to see that public trust money being spent for the things that the community needs. And so in section 2.5, I provide that principal has to come over, then it monthly comes over, it's placed in these restricted accounts, and then it is held and paid out. The rest of the document is exactly the same as what you currently have. We did have the BPT look at this, they approved this, and are recommending it to you. Both the city and the Blackwell Municipal Authority have to approve this because the trustor, which the city and the Blackwell Municipal Authority are both the trustor of this trust, have to approve it. And it has to be approved by 80%. So, everything's at naught if we don't get 4 votes on the city side and the BMA from this board and from the BMA board approving this third amendment. Are there any questions?
So basically what you're doing is, if we would've had the money, say, in a sewer account, accumulating $500,000, in the past, we wouldn't have been able to draw that money out for another account. This will allow us to use that $500,000 in like in a capital improvement account other than sewer, correct?
With respect to that, there was the way we presented the third amendment to the board. We wanted the sewer project account, the water project account, and the street project account, which both have 10%. We had asked that those be placed into the capital improvement account, so that the capital improvement account would go from 44% to 74%. And there was discussion about that. There was feelings on the board that some members of the board that those should stay the way they are, and because streets are important, water's important, sewer's important, and so there were not sufficient votes to get that part of this amendment passed, because the BPT has to approve it by 80% too. So while we were at the meeting and discussing it, I was over here trying to get an amendment that everyone could support. And that's what we're presenting you today.
Good enough.
I move that we go ahead and accept the resolution 02112020.
I'll second that.
Tracy?
Greenfield.
Aye.
Markwart.
Aye.
Braden.
Aye.
Khalil.
Aye.
Webb.
Aye.
Item C is consider appointment of Scott Shepherd as trustee of the Blackwell Tompkins Airport effective March 1st, 2020. Dennis Pierce, is there anybody here to speak for the airport? If not,
No, they were here earlier today, so this was just a recommendation that they, submitted for council approval.
I'll make that motion.
Second. Tracy?
Greenfield.
Aye.
Markwart.
Aye.
Braden.
Aye.
Khalil.
Aye.
Webb.
Aye.
Item D is amendment to the agreement between the City of Blackwell, Oklahoma and Seacoast Roofing and Construction LLC for the renovation of a portion of the Top of Oklahoma Museum in and replacement and/or renovation of its roofs located at 303 South Main, Blackwell, Oklahoma, 74631. Previously approved as an emergency, more details are provided to the council with this item.
Jim Willis and Bryce and myself worked on this, so you should have a lot of pictures, on this. This actually just gives you more detail, and Bryce was able to get that put into a format that he felt more comfortable with the council signing off on. So it's just, Bryce, do you have anything you want to say to it? We just added in a lot of details.
Well, Jim did a good job. When we were here last, I frantically took notes as he spoke about this, and when I reviewed my notes and the documents that we had, I still wasn't able to correctly articulate exactly what we were requiring the contractor to do, and that was probably my fault. So I called up Jim and I said, Jim, can you make it a simple dumb for me? And he said, sure, and hand wrote what it was. I then took that and put that into contract language in this amendment. But I wanted to make sure that I was using the sketches and the exhibits correctly, and that we correctly are directing him what to do. By the way, all the bonds will increase to that full amount. The warranties will apply. There's no change to any of the warranties. And I think that we have, or at least Jim has done a good job. I put it in legal form, but done a good job of saying exactly what was required and to get the product that we need.
Do we, so we don't need we'd have a change order come from the contractor for us to look at and approve.
Yeah,
That's not necessary?
Well, if you remember, what we did is we declared an emergency at that meeting. This was slightly over the change order amount. There was wind, there was the board determined that it was emergency, and I'll tell you, it's just slightly over that amount. But the governing body declared an emergency. I'm just bringing you authorized the approval of this agreement by way of that resolution. But just for full disclosure and to bring it back, I wanted to show you what it looks like. So, I mean, you can go ahead and approve it if you consider you approved it before, because you did. You don't have to, but I think it would be smart to approve it. I think this does a good job of stating exactly what we did, if there's any issues.
And Jim's notes did note that we did approve 55,000. Up to, and he does feel that it's possible, Mark Stroud with Seacoast, feels that he could possibly be underneath that amount by a decent amount.
Right.
That's a quote that even Jim mentioned, so I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, and that is with those roof vents as well.
Yeah.
Because I was not sure that those were included in there, and he did say that they were. I've got one last thing that I got a text from Mark. He said, we got the top of the dome base covered and flashed up the wall. The Tyvek wall wrap comes over the membrane at the bottom of the wall. The new gutter trim will be in next week, and we'll start final repairs on the metal portion of the dome. According to what we looked at a couple of days ago, I think this will take care of the majority of the leaks that we were still having. Maybe not 100% yet, but we're getting close. So we've had a lot of leaks, but we've handled them as best as we could, and sounds like we're almost there.
I think the big thing was making sure the warranty was still intact, and
Yes.
he said, in fact, it would be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, he needs to, sign this
Yes.
agreement, and we're good.
Okay. So would you like a motion? Go ahead.
I'll make that motion that we go ahead and approve the agreement between the city of Blackwell and Seacoast Roofing.
I'll second that.
Tracy?
Greenfield.
Aye.
Markworth.
Aye.
Braden.
Aye.
Khalil.
Aye.
West.
Aye.
Item E is discussion consideration to approve awarding bids for fire ambulance equipment.
We're gonna table that for today because we did not have a chance to look over the bids after we opened, because there's a lot of information. We did get 4 bids for ambulances. That's 2 ambulances apiece from each company. And we also got 2 bids on the pumper tanker, so we need to go over the bids thoroughly and make sure everything's in line with what we're asking for.
Okay.
We'll table this till, next meeting.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Tracy?
Greenfield,
Aye.
Markort,
Aye.
Braden, Khalil,
Aye.
Webb.
Aye.
Item F is discussion and consideration to approve awarding the bids for financing package for fire and ambulance equipment.
We had 3 financing companies bid on this. The rates came in really good, I thought, but we're recommending going with RCB. They came in with a 5-year rate of 1.75% and a 7-year rate of 1.93%. I would like to stick with the same rate or the same term limit as we did with the latter, a 5-year term limit.
And they were the lowest.
And yes, they were the lowest.
I'll make that motion to go to RCB.
I'll second that.
Tracy?
Greenfield,
Aye.
Markort,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
Khalil,
Aye.
Webb.
Aye.
Thank you.
And Corey? Item G, consideration to accept and approve awarding demolition of dilapidated structure bids to the lowest responsible bidder for each bid address. This project was originally budgeted from Blackwell Public Truck Fund, but was changed to the budget amendment number 2, fiscal year 1920, to be paid from the Blackwell Public Trust Community Enhancement Fund. Mr. Williams?
We only had one bidder, which was Deamer Construction on all 3 projects. The reason the chamber sign was put on there, it does reside in city property, it does not work. And it has become an eyesore there on the main corridor of Newman Street. All it is a recommendation, obviously, to the council. And that's about it. Oh, to date, this will put us at about 52,000 out of the 75,000. That'll give us 9 structures torn down. We still have more coming. I think I'll have to check with Tracy. We'll have about 25,000 more to do, and we have other properties that will be coming to you as time goes on.
And when we originally discussed this, we approved to just go out for bids on any of the properties that you guys deemed to be dilapidated, correct?
Yes.
So it's just a blanket approval to go out for those bids? Or do we approve each bid?
Each certain property has to go out for bid.
Certain properties.
Okay. Well, I don't remember bidding, putting the chamber on there as a bid item, so that's why I was asking. I don't remember us, I don't know
It
how
was
that
just put on
works.
there because it resides on city property. It
Right.
doesn't operate no more, and it has become a eyesore.
Right, okay.
You mean, I'm sorry, DJ, you mean getting approval to go out to bid?
Right,
Okay.
that's what I was referring to.
I don't recall if that was appointed or not.
I don't remember.
I can find you a solid answer on that if you want to table the sign. We're not taking any action on it.
Or,
I can bring you more information on it.
or,
I think we just said that we would bring items to you that the fire chief and Jerry
right.
deemed that needed to be brought to you.
I just don't remember the council individually approving these to go off the bid, so I just want to make sure that we did it properly.
Sure. And like I said, if you need more information, I can get with Tracy and we can bring more information to you.
Look and see what we've done in the last.
Okay.
And Damer's always done a great job.
Yeah.
Even prior to me coming here, previous city manager was very
Right.
appreciative of the work they do. His phrase was, they always leave it like a garden. They've torn down 2 structures since I've been here, and they're on their 3rd one now. So.
Yeah, I would second that. They've always done a great job. Okay, what action should we take?
Let's approve A and C, hold off on B until we can confirm that was brought to before us, is what I'm suggesting. Second that.
Okay, Tracy?
Greenfield,
Aye.
Markort,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
Khalil,
Aye.
Webb.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Moving on to item H, consideration convening to executive session to discuss the performance review of the city manager Janet Smith pursuant to Title 25, Section 307B1 of the Oklahoma statutes as amended. Any action? Or discussion?
year. It's time for a performance review. Performance review, probably should take place in executive session rather than out here. There's not gonna be other discussion. I have some. I requested this. Actually, what I requested was for some input because of accusations, charges against myself, council conduct. So, I believe those charges, those accusations are rather frivolous. For example, I said
That is not on the agenda.
yeah, I said put in the museum. I was curious.
Again, that is not on the agenda.
We're talking about review, okay? You guys don't wanna go to executive session? We'll discuss some of it here.
Bryce.
Well, you know, if you're gonna discuss the city manager review, you should go into executive session. If there's a vote not to go into executive session, then you have to move on, you know, to the next item. But, you know, if you don't elect to, I mean, I'm advising you, you should go into executive session to discuss performance. But if you'll, you know, the item is broad enough that you could discuss it here, you know, without going into executive session, but I'm saying that you should not. You know, you should not do that. The only purpose of the agenda is to identify what the topic is. You know, I mean, that's what the purpose is, to identify what the topic is. But you shouldn't talk about performance, and John, you did have those issues, and I told you that the only way that we could talk about that issue, those issues would be through this type of agenda item in executive session, as it would tend to go to performance, your evaluation of performance. And since you wanted an executive session, you want to discuss those items, I said that this is the proper way to frame the agenda. So I guess that you did make a motion, right?
He did make a motion, yes.
So,
I did. I'm also curious that this council is not interested in doing an annual evaluation that's required. Is it not?
well,
Performance evaluation?
yeah, I could pull up the contract. I didn't really review the contract to see that, but I do believe that it provides for a performance review. But of course, in order to have an executive session, there have to be a sufficient, there has to be a motion and second and a majority of you approving that. And without that, you can't convene into executive session. I do not recommend, because there's potential liberty interest, there's reputation interest. I mean, it shouldn't be done, should absolutely not be done out in public. At least, you know, that's my opinion.
Yep. So again, I'm saying, asking this council, you're not willing to do a performance evaluation that's expected, required? You're not doing your job if you refuse to do this. I'll leave it at that.
That is a requirement of the contract, to be honest. A yearly performance review. We could simply do the same performance review that was done previously, if that's what you want to use the same theory.
Yeah, you just need to, it needs to be a motion, needs to pass. Maybe
Right.
Members don't want to do it today, or, you know, but, you know,
Yeah.
I believe it is provided in the contract, and
some point, it should be done. Certainly, it should be done before there's a renewal. We did it last year at kind of the end of, after budget, sometime in June or something, that's when we did it. But it's whenever you want it, whenever the board elects to do it. But this was directly to your question, to your issue, John, and what I told you is that this would be the best avenue to address that and to address.
I would agree. That's why I asked for an executive session to discuss the issues. And the issues were me as much as her. Okay? So I find it, kind of interesting the council is viewed on the point. You're not concerned about what kind of conduct, how I conducted myself. I'm willing to discuss it.
There is a motion, is there a second?
I'll call for that, Steve. I'm the chairman.
I think you should take seriously about it.
If there is no second, the motion's gonna die, and we'll move on.
I say if the accusations were made against one of you, would you want to have a discussion?
The provisions, let me just note that, the provision, because I have it here, 1 year after the anniversary date and on or about each successive anniversary date thereafter occurring, if occurring, employer shall meet with employee and discuss, I think this is the right one. I really want to see the signed one, because I drafted one, and there was another one, I want to make sure that it's the signed one, and I don't know that I have the signed one in my file. So it's certainly something that I can report back to you with the answer to your recreational sales tax issue.
Okay, we'll move on. Number 7 is new business. Is there any new business this evening for the Blackwell City Council? If there being none, we'll adjourn the meeting of Blackwell City Council and open the meeting of Blackwell Municipal Authority. First item on that agenda is the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Tracy?
Granville,
Aye.
Markport,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
Khalil,
Aye.
Webb.
Aye.
Item 3 is business. Under there is item A is discussion, consideration to take action with respect to resolution number 02112020, approving the Third Amendment to the trust indenture of the Blackwell Public Trust, accepting beneficial interest in said Third Amendment to the trust indenture, and containing other provisions related thereto. This is a carryover item from the City Council side.
Make a motion to approve resolution 02112020.
Second that.
Tracy?
Granville,
Aye.
Markport,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
Khalil,
Aye.
Webb.
Aye.
Item 4 is new business for the BMA. Any new business this evening? No? With there being none, we adjourn the meeting of Blackwell Municipal Authority. Thank you all.